So now our subject is insight and engagement. The question is now why listening more than ever is crucial for designing content strategies. So we have seen Brexit, we have seen the Trump election, so many reasons to ask the question why listen more maybe than in the past. He will now talk about how AI and predictive analytics can help you better understand and engage your audience. Steffen Konrath is the founder and CEO of Liquid Newsroom here in Germany, and he has been working successfully for Dropbox, PagerDuty, Dynatrace, and many others. So very happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. So my core focus today is to give you answers for something like, you would like to launch a magazine, for example. You don't know on what kind of subject you should focus on. Is there a way to use data for that purpose? Or you have to identify the audience for the magazine, and you really don't have a clue how to get those audience together. So this was one of the questions I had for an organization in Starnberg near Munich, who actually wanted to launch a magazine for predictive analytics, and it's really hard to find that audience, and we identified it using data. So what I'm talking about, I would like to give you in the first part a little bit more perspective on what kind of status we see outside, and I will give you insights about how I work today using artificial intelligence. You have been following the presidential election in the US last year, probably. You heard of a company called Cambridge Analytica saying they claimed actually that they helped Trump to succeed and to win the election. It's wrong. Yeah. We know that a Swiss company, a magazine actually wrote about it and everybody was in buzz. Yeah, artificial intelligence, beautiful. German election is coming up this autumn. So should we be afraid of companies or parties more working with data than others? In fact, the real team working behind the campaign, like Gary Kobe, they were not working with Cambridge Analytica data. So it was not artificial intelligence in this way. Despite of that, it's quite an interesting subject to work with that kind of data. So why? Artificial intelligence, it sounds like it's like a robot world, doesn't it? So it's not, of course. It gives you so much insights, and I would like to give you a perspective why it really matters to you, why it's interesting for magazine business. So for you, the typical questions are how can you rise your subscriber base? How can you grow your business, the advertising business? How do you monetize mobile? We heard about the mobile marketplace going up. So the difficulties about that, how to advertise on that kind of channels is so difficult. And how to get advertisers excited. What made me a little bit afraid was when I had a closer look at our competition here. What's really in our marketplace here is to understand what are the competitors and what are their market offerings for advertisers, for example. And it's compelling because finally, in the end, those who advertise and have money will spend it where we get the best answers to their questions. So where do we find really the audience? The problem is, and if you think about the different platforms out there, we know that Google and Facebook are quite dominating the space. This is about the display advertising market. Fact is, and if you look at the specifics of those platforms, Google is fantastic if you're an advertiser looking for demand, real demand, for what kind of products and services you have to offer. This is perfect. No magazine could do it. Twitter, I tell you who is interested in what you are actually offering to the market. Twitter is what we call the interest graph. So this was the thing I used when we worked for the Starnberg company, identifying the audience for business intelligence, predictive analytics, experts and specialists. So I turned to Twitter to identify those people who are engaged with hashtags about that subject. And so you really can target those people directly on a one-to-one base. Facebook, and that's amazing. I don't know if you heard that figure from NPR. They did a kind of research to figure out how many data points Facebook has. It's 50,000 data points per each individual, at least. That's huge. So think about the figures we normally have. If you think about metrics, it's unique visitors, it's recurring visitors, and so on. Sometimes shares, likes, and so on. But 50,000 data points, that's amazing. If I'm a company and I have 10 euros to spend, I say, I go there because they can deliver those people who are really interesting for me. So the next thing, which was just a wake-up call for me, was when I was looking at how Google has evolved over time. I spent some time recently at a conference in Munich, SMX, and I had to stay at the hotel for dinner at the night. And I turned to Google, of course, Google search, and said, hey, tell me, where can I find the hotel chain? It's Ibis. And immediately looking at the location data it has from the smartphone, it was able to tell me that the Ibis Munich is just 10 minutes from the place. So that's cool, isn't it? So if you look back in history, what search was, it was like looking for hotel chains in Hamburg and Berlin, somewhere in the world, but it was not on focus and really on what you're looking for. So this has changed. You can experience that with Google search, and you can experience if you use Google Maps for that purpose. The interesting part of it is Google makes more sense of what it thinks you're actually looking for than what you are typing in. So that is what we call predictive intent. Predictive technology used to predict the next step of what you might take. Now think about how that has an impact on the search engines itself. We are moving from a suggestion engine, which just gives you a lot of choice, into something which tells you this is what you're looking for. Now, I guess that all of you are working kind of as content strategies, like SEO strategies, to figure out how to get the content pushed in search. So now look at what's happening there. Look at the feature which Google introduced recently. Look at that kind of technology which predicts outcome. This is a completely new game. This is really disruptive. It's as disruptive that I would say it's even a danger for those in the business of SEO. Because once this is really true and the search engine gives you one option only, one chance, you don't need someone who optimizes content anymore. What does it mean for your business? The next thing, it's chatbots. We heard a little bit about it today in the beginning when we heard about the statistics. Chatbot and conversational commerce behind it. It's quite an interesting stuff as well. It's just, if you think about a website as something somehow static, not so dynamic, and you think about a chatbot actually something which is engaging with you in a kind of conversation, it's a completely different type of stuff you get. It's more like me when I was at that day traveling too long and the refrigerator was empty. I was looking for food, so I turned to Google and said, pizza. The pizza was obviously closed at the time, not possible to get. But the chatbot said, okay, it's not pizza, maybe you would like to Asian food, something like that. So the data you get from that kind of service is amazing. But this is not a platform, this is not Facebook, it's not Twitter. It could be your platform to gain more insights into what's interesting for people. Especially if you think about chatbots not to be used as just like selecting options, but used in a way that uses artificial intelligence behind it. So back to the original headline of this presentation today is why listening more than ever is crucial. I say that it's time to stop that kind of broadcasting content. We need to find and figure out ways how to adjust content that way, that we serve a specific purpose at a specific time. And this is something which could be done with artificial intelligence. This is not only artwork for me, it's the daily work we do. So in this case, a company turned to us and said, I would like to know and understand what kind of network is there in the market. You know, we are not really sure about the content we would like to publish. We are not really sure how to get in touch with what audience we're really targeting. So what we did is we just listened to the market. We listened to the discussion about digital transformation, and we used the data to draw that kind of social graph analytics models. These models are beautiful. It's a model which can help you to understand if there are hidden barriers in the market. Sometimes you will recognize your subscription will not get to the end of everyone in the market because there are barriers in the market and you can't get to everyone. In this case, you can just analyze why people might be nearer to you than others and how to approach them. So we did the analysis for digital transformation for subjects beyond that. So people were not only discussing about that one, but they were also discussing about Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, Industry 4.0, and so on. This was interesting to see what kind of content mix is important. So thinking about the company who was actually asking us to do that analysis, we wanted to know what kind of content focus should we have. So imagine you just like a game thinking about what content you should publish. This is it's not a game anymore. It's using data to quantify interest in real time in this case. So what we found out was at the top articles in that landscape of digital transformation, we found a specific mix of subjects. If you would like to analyze that kind of subject concepts to understand what kind of content you have to offer, you can use artificial intelligence, which can analyze content from a very abstract level to understand the concepts behind it, so you can cluster it accordingly. In this case, I would say if you're data management or you would like to talk about digital workplace, it's only 3% of your audience actually interested in that kind of subject. So it's pretty poor if you would like to target a market. So what would a perfect content mix look like? This is something which at least asks for questions for that. So having that in mind, having in mind what kind of content works in the market, we now closer looked at the content which I as a person consume. So what kind of mix do I have regarding the subjects in the research space? In the first case, this is the first column here, the digital transformation column, we can see that there's only little interest in other subjects. The same happens here with Industry 4.0, where the main subject is really Industry 4.0, and only little interest in other subjects. It's completely different for cloud, for example, cloud-related subjects. So what does it mean? In this case, we were able to say for the company, we have 3 different distinct audiences. This one, which is interested in the future of work, this one, which is interested in the Industry 4.0 thing, and this one, which is interested in digital transformation. If you would like to target a broader audience in that market, you need to focus on that kind of subjects. And this was enabled because we were able, on an individual level, to distinguish the interests of the people. We also look closer at who's actually publishing in that space to understand what kind of competitors do you face. And interestingly, it was only 22% actually publishers talking about digital transformation. So all the rest, so 78% were actually business type of blogs, people or companies. So they entered the space and dominated the space somehow. We had a closer look at those companies engaging in that area and looked at what kind of DNA we show in the content strategy. So this is an analysis you should also put into the kind of model to understand, like this one here, company 6, which is Microsoft, and company 3, which is consultants, meaning that the consulting companies should have a strongest focus on topics like business strategy, which is the orange bar here. But as you can see here, if you compare those orange bars from Microsoft and consulting, Microsoft is even in a domain which should be occupied by consultants dominating the discussion, which is interesting. So if you would like to compare yourself, it's one way to figure out how you play in that game. How does it work really? Another perspective on that subject was to see if you know the performance of the companies, how much effort do you have to put into your content strategies to climb up and to be recognized somehow. We figured out something similar. As you can see, here are the names of companies still in here. Consulting is found right here, which means we put a lot of effort into content creation, a lot of effort in getting attention. Microsoft is doing less work, but is much more successful because the larger the P, the more successful you are as a company. So this is interesting if you think about the scarcity of resources, scarcity of money and people, and you have to focus really on what you're doing. This is something which can help you to be more focused on what you're doing. Finally, and I would like to conclude that part now here, we are not talking about search engine optimization anymore. So much of the data you saw here we used for the analysis was from published articles, which is one word, and real communication outside. So putting all those pieces, data pieces together, can create a kind of model which we use to train a neural network, which helps us to predict people's reaction to content. So we used it to train a model which helps us to understand what kind of content do we focus on. And it's not about search, and it's not about social, not about social sharing. So this is really about artificial intelligence. It's using all data outside. It's not only in your environment. We're not talking about your own data. It's not website data. It's websites data, so competitors as well. So the whole universe of data. So which gives us a lot more impressions and ideas of what's interesting. So finally, with all that information in mind, we have a model where we know how people interact, where the barriers are, where the hubs are, where the influencers were in the market. You know how to target those people. You can even think about what kind of content drives them on a daily basis. This is one thing. The second thing is, if you know the universe of published articles, what kind of content are working. The third part now is to understand who's consuming that kind of information. And with artificial intelligence today, so that's the Trump model in real, you can actually think about what's the personality of someone. It's actually, that's the research part behind the election thing you heard. It needs 3,000 words to get a nearly accurate picture of a personality of a person. That's pretty, it's not much, isn't it? So you need to have some conversational data with people, that's it, to get an idea of. What's shown here in this kind of visualization is a sunburst diagram. It's like a 360-degree model of what a personality could look like. It's something which tells you something about the values, the characteristics, and the needs of a person. That's amazing if you think about how impactful that could be in how you create a magazine, how you create products or services. So I work a lot with tech companies. It's not with publishers primarily. And we use that kind of findings about the audience interested in content to figure out what kind of approach you should take in the software roadmap, for example. What kind of features are needed? How does the appeal of a magazine might look like, yeah, or should look like? Is it a person who is more interested in something like a visionary approach to what's happening in the future? Is it someone who is more down to the ground saying, I need the facts, the figures, the testimonial stuff? If you know that kind of information, you can think of targeting that kind of audience much better. Why? You might have heard it. We have a lot of marketing talks today. It's what we call the segment of one approach. So it means, is it possible to create a machine which understands the specific user's needs at the point the person is actually hitting the website, for example? And is it possible to create an engine which responds to that kind of information in real time, offering the content that person really needs? Thanks. Yeah, no, nearly. Hold on a second.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Finally, the fantastic thing I thought when I was actually thinking about artificial intelligence as a technology which makes sense in publishing as well, was that we are near to an approach where we are able to serve the needs of a person. It's not personas, it's not scenarios we used in creating websites, for example. Forget about it. It's really thinking about using technology to decide what kind of needs does a person have now. The final advice also, data is not cost. The data you can get is actually an asset. You can, the time you spend in getting those data together and the kind of findings you get from that, it's a learning curve which helps you to get better and better over time. This is completely different from spending money for Google advertising, for example, or Facebook advertising. We know that we need to spend money to get awareness for our audience on Facebook, just because we had the damn algorithm in place, which says only 30% of your audience gets the content. This one is completely different. It's really spending money and getting something which is knowledge which is asset. And it accumulates over time. Now I'm ready.
Thank you very much. Do you have a question? Okay, I have two. First is, I try to knit together what you are saying with what we heard in the beginning of the day. Mm-hmm. It was about, okay, small decisions, make them on science based on data. Big decisions, make them out of your gut. Yeah? Where's that? I'm missing the magic of publishing. So it kind of like publishing in the early days was kind of, okay, that's the world outside, that's me, that's our team, and there's something like magic. Now everything is tackled, data, etc. So where's the gut, where's the magic, etc.?
You know, if you have the data, you still need a gut feeling to make sense of the data. The point is, we are competing against data companies. So it's a completely different market now. It's not that Mark Zuckerberg is thinking about his gut feeling when he plans his platform. It's not, if you look at Google, it's scientific work, it's research, it's brand, it's data which drives them. So we're competing against the best data companies in the world, which means we have to at least think about getting data in a way which makes sense, which helps us to develop magazines and content strategies.
Being a European girl, I'm kind of occupied with the idea of where is politics going to, yeah? What do young people think of the future of where does peace come from, etc. Means like, how do we, when we follow the data, that's my question related to that, are we narrowing the worlds we are creating for the people outside if we only follow their paths? Or how can we broaden again the perspective? I'm coming to the responsibility of journalism and, to shape the world outside. So that's a bit my concern. It's a naive question, I know, but...
No, it's not a naive question. Two thoughts about that. First of all, we currently use artificial intelligence and the social graph analytics thing with a public broadcast in Germany ahead of a German election. So the idea behind it is to figure out how the political landscape actually forms in Germany and how that might impact the election. So this is one thing, that's responsibility. You can use it in a journalistic context as well. The second thing is, it's the gut feeling again, it's what the brand is, yeah? If you say, that's the algorithm part of it. So there needs to be something like an incident variable which changes because you say you don't have to get an echoed chamber. It's just not reflecting your own opinion again. So what your brand is, what the editorial decision will be is, okay, that's the data, but that's the mix we would like to offer. So we have a factor in it which says you need to get content which might confuse you more, challenge you somehow, which is not only just reflecting what you think.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.